The Alaskan wind, a cold, relentless whisper, was Jonas's only constant companion. For 5 years, he had lived in a small, rustic cabin carved from the heart of the wilderness, a sanctuary of pine and solitude. At 28, Jonas was a man of the mountain, strong, silent, and a stranger to the world beyond the jagged peaks. He was a virgin, not by choice, but by circumstance. His days were a rhythm of traps, hunting, and the simple, brutal honesty of survival. The nearest settlement was days away, a place of noise and people he had long forgotten how to navigate. The year was 1898, and the world was in the throes of the Klondike gold rush, a fever that had infected men and women from all corners of the globe. Jonas knew of it, of the throngs passing through his territory on their way to the promise of fortune, but he paid them no mind. His wealth was in the pristine air, the clear rivers, and the quiet dignity of a life lived on his own terms. One evening, as a blizzard began to roll in, a figure appeared on the horizon, a small dark speck against the vast white expanse. It was a woman, her clothes thin and torn, her face a mask of desperation and frostbite. Her name was Anya. She had lost her group, a terrible accident leaving her stranded with no supplies and no hope. Jonas, a man who rarely spoke a word, could not turn her away. He led her into his cabin, a place that had never known the warmth of another soul. Anya collapsed by the fire, shivering uncontrollably. She was a woman of the city, of finer things, and the wilderness had stripped her of her worldly defenses. As she warmed, she looked at Jonas, his quiet strength and gentle hands, as he tended to her wounds. "Stay one night," she said, her voice hoarse, "and I'll give you wealth." She explained that she was a daughter of a wealthy family from Seattle, and if he would get her back to civilization, she would reward him beyond his wildest dreams. Jonas, a man with no need for riches, simply nodded. He saw not a source of wealth, but a human in need of help. Her offer meant nothing to him, her life meant everything. As the blizzard raged outside, an awkward silence settled between them. Anya, used to a world of endless chatter, found herself mesmerized by his quiet intensity. Jonas, for the first time in years, was not alone. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the unspoken questions that hung between them. He tended to her with a quiet respect that she had never known. The night passed, and with the morning light, a sense of peace filled the cabin. For a moment, they were just two people, a man of the mountain and a woman of the city, connected by a shared vulnerability in the face of nature's power. The storm passed, but the world outside was now a landscape of deep, impassable snow. Jonas knew he had to wait. As days turned into a week, they began to speak, not of wealth, but of their lives. Anya, who had always been defined by her family's fortune, found herself telling him of her dreams, of her love for painting, and of a life she had always wanted to live, free from expectation. Jonas, in turn, told her of the land, of the spirit of the caribou, and of the silence that gave him strength. He taught her how to set a snare, how to identify edible plants, and how to read the sky. She, in turn, showed him a picture of a world he couldn't imagine, a world of art and music. A quiet respect grew between them, not of a man and a woman, but of two people learning to see each other for who they truly were. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of purple and gold, casting long shadows over the snow, Anya took his calloused hands. She looked into his eyes, not with the desperation of her first night, but with a deep, new-found gratitude. "Jonas," she said, her voice soft, "thank you for teaching me that some things are worth more than gold. For more stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications." The snow finally cleared enough for travel, and Jonas prepared for the long journey. It was not a trip he looked forward to. The thought of the bustling settlements and the endless stream of people was a weight on his shoulders, but he had made a silent promise, a promise of a safe return. Their journey was slow and arduous. The path was treacherous, and the cold was a constant biting companion. Anya, no longer the helpless city woman, walked beside him, her spirit hardened by the time she had spent in the cabin. She had learned to be resilient, yet she stumbled, and Jonas was always there to catch her. His hands, though rough, were gentle. His presence was a steady anchor in the wild, unpredictable world. They shared what little food they had, their meals a quiet communion under the vast Alaskan sky. They spoke less now, their connection forged not in words, but in the shared struggle. The respect they had for each other deepened into something more profound. Anya saw the depth of his character, a man who lived by a code of honor and kindness. Jonas, in turn, saw her strength, a woman who had faced unimaginable hardship and emerged with a spirit unbroken. One night, huddled by a fire, a fierce wind howling around them, Anya shivered. Jonas, without a word, took off his thick parka and draped it over her shoulders. She looked at him, her eyes shining in the firelight. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. It was not a gesture of a man seeking a reward, but of a man who cared deeply. Anya, for the first time, felt a pang of something more than gratitude, a feeling of true affection. As they neared the settlement of Skagway, a change came over Anya. The city woman began to reappear. She spoke of her family, of her past life, of the obligations she had left behind. Jonas listened, a quiet observer. He felt a pang of sadness. This was the world he had left behind, a world of expectations and pretense. He knew that their time together was coming to an end. When they arrived in Skagway, the town was a chaotic hub of activity. Men and women jostled for space, their eyes filled with a desperate hunger for gold. Anya's family, who had heard of a woman matching her description, were waiting. Her father, a stern, wealthy man, embraced her, his relief palpable. He looked at Jonas, his gaze a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. He offered Jonas a large sum of money, more than he could ever spend. Jonas, however, politely refused. "Sir," Jonas said, his voice surprisingly clear and steady, "I did not bring your daughter back for money. I brought her back because it was the right thing to do." He turned to leave, but Anya stopped him. She looked at her father, then at Jonas, a decision dawning in her eyes. "Father," she said, "I have changed. The woman you knew is gone." She took Jonas's hand, a silent gesture of her choice. Jonas, the man who had long avoided human connection, felt a spark ignite within him. The world of Skagway was a shock to Jonas. He was surrounded by noise, by the endless hum of human ambition. Yet with Anya by his side, the chaos seemed to fade. She took him to a boarding house, a small room with a window overlooking the muddy streets. For the first time, he saw her life from her perspective, a life of comfort and privilege. But Anya was not the same woman. She was a blend of the city and the wild, a woman who had seen true struggle and found her strength in it. Jonas, for his part, struggled to fit in. The people saw him as a curiosity, a mountain man, a relic of a world they were trying to conquer. He was silent, observant, and uncomfortable. He missed the quiet solitude of his cabin, the simple rhythm of his days. Anya's father, seeing the affection between them, was displeased. He saw Jonas as a man of no social standing, a man who could not provide for his daughter. He offered Jonas a job, a way to make his fortune, a way to become worthy. But Jonas refused, his quiet dignity a stark contrast to the man's bluster. Anya, meanwhile, was torn. She loved her father, but she had found a deeper truth in the wilderness, a truth embodied in Jonas. One afternoon, as they sat by the window watching the endless stream of people, Anya took Jonas's hands. "Jonas," she said, "I know you don't belong here, and I'm not sure I do anymore either." She told him of her plans, of her desire to use her money to help others, to create a school for children in need, a place where they could learn not just to read and write, but to respect the land and its people. "I want to do this, Jonas, but I want to do it with you," she said, her voice full of hope. Jonas looked at her, his heart swelling with an emotion he had never known. It wasn't just love. It was a profound sense of connection, a shared purpose. He, the man who had wanted nothing, had found something more valuable than any gold. He had found a partner, a companion, a soul who understood him. He took her hands, his touch gentle yet firm. He had come to the city to return a lost woman, but he had found his place in the world. He was no longer just a man of the mountain. He was a man who had found his own kind of wealth. With Anya, he did not need to retreat to the solitude of his cabin. He could be himself, a quiet, respectful man in a loud world, because she saw him for who he truly was. And in her, he saw not a woman of wealth, but a woman of strength and compassion. Together they would build a new life, a life where the values of the mountain, respect, dignity, and a love for the land, were a greater fortune than any gold could ever be. Jonas, the man who had been a virgin in both body and heart, had found his true home, not in a cabin, but in the hands of the woman who had taught him the meaning of true wealth. The next morning, Anya went to her father. She found him in the parlor of their luxurious suite, poring over maps of mining claims. "Father," she began, her voice steady, "I have something important to tell you." He looked up, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. "What is it, Anya? I have business to attend to." "It's about Jonas," she said, her hands clasped tightly, "and about me." She recounted her time in the wilderness, not as a tragedy, but as a journey of self-discovery. She spoke of Jonas's kindness, his unwavering integrity, and the simple, honest life he led. "He saved my life, Father," she said, "and he showed me what truly matters. It's not the size of a claim or the number of dollars in a bank account. It's about how you live." Her father listened, his face a mask of disbelief. "You're talking about abandoning everything you've ever known for a man with nothing, a trapper, a nobody." "He's not a nobody." Anya's voice rose, her eyes filling with tears of frustration. "He's more of a man than anyone I've ever met in this city. He has respect for the world and for people. He is not defined by his wealth, but by his character, and that's what I want for my life, too." He stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You will not throw away your future. I forbid this." But Anya, for the first time in her life, was not swayed by his authority. "I can't be that person anymore, Father. My wealth can be used for good. I want to build a school, a place where children can learn to read and write, but also learn to love the land and its people. I want to build a life of purpose, and I want to do it with Jonas." Her father's bluster faded into a weary resignation. He saw the fire in her eyes, a passion he had never seen before. He had always believed money could buy happiness, but looking at his daughter now, he saw that she had found a happiness money couldn't touch. Later that day, Jonas and Anya walked through the bustling streets of Skagway. She had a new resolve in her step, a clear path laid out before her. She took Jonas's hands, looking into his eyes with a profound sense of purpose. "My father doesn't understand," she said, "but that doesn't matter. What matters is us, and what we can do." Jonas, in turn, looked not at the chaotic world around them, but at the woman beside him. She was no longer just a woman of wealth, but a partner, a kindred spirit. He had come to the city to return a lost woman, but he had found his place in the world. He was no longer just a man of the mountain. He was a man who had found his own kind of wealth. With Anya, he would not need to retreat to the solitude of his cabin. He could be himself a quiet, respectful man in a loud world, because she saw him for who he truly was. And in her, he saw not a woman of wealth, but a woman of strength and compassion. Together they would build a new life, a life where the values of the mountain, respect, dignity, and a love for the land, were a greater fortune than any gold could ever be. Jonas, the man who had been a virgin in both body and heart, had found his true home, not in a cabin, but in the hands of the woman who had taught him the meaning of true wealth.